Let's see, what's on YouTube? I'm not trying to buy real estate with no money down. I already have Manscaped. Ah, that pedal show has a new episode out. Those guys are so funny with their accents. They always sound so smart, you know, and they're just hilarious. That is the best show on YouTube. I wonder why they've never done an episode of the Kemper. I'd enjoy that. Yeah, that would be good. What if they did an episode on the Kemper? What if there was a whole show, kind of like that show, but just dedicated to the Kemper? I wonder if the Kemper can... HW here.
Mbritt here.
And welcome to That Kemper Show.
That Kemper Show.
That Kemper Show.
I like the ring of that. It just kind of rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, you know, some of us have waited for literally years now for like a proper like showcasing of this amazing Kemper technology.
Yeah, because it is a pedal. I mean, now it's a pedal.
And we haven't gotten it. And so we figured, I guess we'll just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
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 So we should do that.
Yeah, it's like a profile.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an homage. It's
like a profile of a YouTube show.
Yeah, well, anyway, okay. Let's talk about the Kemper. We love it. You're Mr. Kemper. I'm Mr. Kemper. There's a real Mr. Kemper.
There's a lot of Mr. Kempers.
There's a lot of Mr. Kempers out there. But
guys in the band call me Dr. Kemper.
Really?
Yeah.
The guys in my band call me HW.
Oh, do they?
So
I should have said I'm Dr. Kemper. Okay.
No, but really, this is how can we ignore the amazing piece of technology that is the Kemper?
I use it every week. I don't ignore it at all.
Yeah, well, I don't ignore it either. It's kind of like a modeler, but it creates the models. We call them profiles.
Yeah.
And
it's not just any Marshall, it's my Marshall.
It's your Marshall. It's your Marshall with your mics.
Yeah.
With whatever, you know.
My preferred speaker of choice that everybody else bags on.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
And for me, it's every possibility in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you know, I want this one. No, I want this one. No, I want this one. No, I want this one and this one. I forgot about the one I loved a month ago, but because I'm on to something else.
And that's why I tell people you get out of it what you put into it.
That's very true.
I mean, if you don't like my sounds or somebody else's sounds, you make your own sounds.
Yeah.
You're not limited to that 15 or 20 or 100 different amp models.
We're going to get into on a future episode how to profile at home and our thoughts on that and how people can get really usable profiles at home. But let's decode for the people tone shaping, how we dial in effects. You and I have pretty similar schools of thought on this. And really, you know, before I ever started profiling, it was your profiles that convinced me sort of this is it. This is the number. It's your fault. It's all your fault. My wife is very mad.
I created a monster.
Yeah. You did you created a floral wearing monster.
Speaking of floral, you got your own swag, sort of.
And you've got.
And so my buddy made me this, you know, with the logo and his nickname for me.
Sparky.
Yeah.
I love it.
His nickname is Scooter. So Scooter and Sparky.
You know, before I was HW, I sold these shirts.
Did you really? Dickies?
I did.
Yeah.
Dickies. Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
Yeah.
They're great work shirts.
They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we embroidered too and everything.
Really?
Yeah, maybe we made that for you. I don't know.
You probably did, actually.
What are we playing here? Show us what this sounds like. It's your 57 Deluxe 81.
This is not even out yet. This is just one I've been working
wow.
on yet.
That sounds great.
So it's basically just a Tweed, you know, Tweed Deluxe.
Yeah.
Volume tone.
It's a good sounding guitar.
It's a sewer.
Mine too.
You're familiar with sewers a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love 3 P90 guitars. You love P90s.
Yeah.
I just love being able to get that stratty kind of in between sound too.
Yeah.
So that's why I always kind of prefer the ones with 3 in it.
Yeah, but it's fat.
It's nice and fat. It's not wimpy like some Strat bridge pickups get a little wimpy. This has got a nice body to it.
They should be paying us.
I know. No kidding.
Hey, John, just send us a check, okay? No, but it sounds great. 57 Deluxe. Okay, let's say that you downloaded this from somebody, or let's say you created this profile, or you just picked up this guitar. It already sounds great, but let's say it didn't. What are we going to do? How do we get into editing? Like, what are the best practices?
Well, just like any amp, you have your volume. I mean, your bass metal treble. So as soon as you start turning these, you'll see what they're set at, and these are all set at 0 because this is a new profile. So you can just turn them and make them whatever you want. If you want more low end, you turn up the bass.
Do you normally put the profiles out with the EQ at 0?
I try to. Now there may be some slight bumps, just for my own personal taste, because when I make the sample clips, I may tweak it just slightly, just for the sample clip recording, and then I save it, and that's the saved version is what I put in the pack.
Got it.
So whatever I used on the sample clip is directly out of the.
It's the one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, honestly, sometimes I'll just crank open all the EQ knobs just a little bit.
They sound good.
And they sound better once you even if you just bump them up a little bit.
Isn't it funny how even like for me, I'll put the cut the mix EQ in a lot of profiles, and it makes 90% of anything you put at it just sound better.
Yeah.
Just a couple like ear candy frequencies just pop out a little bit.
A lot of mine are really thick in the 500 hertz range, and that cut the mix, I think that's one of the spots it pulls it out.
Gives you,
And in certain speakers, it sounds like I can play my profiles through certain speakers. Oh, they don't sound good, but it's like that. It's just I tune it for whatever I'm listening to, which is my in-ear monitors. So that may sound great in there, but maybe different on other speakers.
Sure.
So you can tweak the EQ on the monitor out or the main out, or you can do what you do is put the cut the mix or any kind of EQ in it.
Yeah, I always tell guys if you play and you like the sound of your guitar and then you get in the band and all of a sudden you find yourself disappearing a bit, I just say throw that on. See if it doesn't help, you know what I mean? But let's get into it. Where do we go here? We got the EQ. Let's get into the fun stuff.
The fun stuff. So beyond the 4-band EQ, you've got all these cool parameters in the amplifier section. Starts with definition. The definition, how would you describe it? I picture it more as like a seesaw balance.
Yeah, I sometimes tell people just think of it as like you can control the whole amp. Like you're not turning up the treble like a seesaw balance, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But imagine you want the amp to sound different. Not like one parameter, but you just want the whole amp to be
less
like
bright or more
less bright. Yeah. Darker and thicker, brighter and more defined. Defined is really the word for what I feel like it does for the top end.
And it changes a little bit more on gain profiles. On clean, it is more just an EQ thing. On gain profiles, it really tells you kind of where the low cut is before the gain circuit.
Right.
So if you start going to the low numbers in the definition, you're allowing more low end to go into the gain, the distortion part of the circuit.
Right.
And when you distort low frequencies, it sounds different than when you just distort high frequencies.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of high gain amps, when we profile them, the definition gets set automatically. It reads the definition. A lot of the high profile or high gain amps that I profile, it'll have definition 10.
Oh,
if you do that as well. So
I find that happens whenever I use like a clon in front because obviously it
drops off the low end.
Exactly. So you get that high definition number. Yeah, tons of my I'll put a lot of clon profile in packs because just here's the sound and then that same sound being pushed with the clon because it's one of my favorite pedals and it's not in there. So I throw those in.
And I sometimes finesse it so that the definition isn't at 10, just so it gives people room to go up and down.
Right. I love when I
moving mics until like it's not at 10 sometimes.
Right. I love sitting down with an amp, throwing the mics in front. It sounds great. I feel like Divided by Stuff. Oh, you click the button and then boom, it comes back at 5. And it's just like
I love those days.
These are great. This is going to be an amazing.
And some matchless amps that I love the way they sound, they'll profile like at 1 or 0. I'm like, the definition.
Yeah. I've seen
that. And I kind of fight those a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's because they're such full range amps, they let all those frequencies through.
There's a lot of high end. And in the Kemper manual, it talks about matchless amps actually. It references Well, it describes definition control as lower definition. It will be more akin to like vintage amps.
Right.
Whereas modern boutique stuff may have more cutting high end and it's more like a higher definition. And I think it's from that. Matchless, it can have a real cutting high end. 2-Rock stuff to me has, that really kind of cutting high end.
The matchless also, they allow so much of that low end and they don't do a lot of filtering of the low end out of the circuit.
Yeah.
So you can get very wide ranges on the definition control on matchless.
Yeah, for sure. Especially their bigger tube stuff like the Chieftain and and the club and stuff. Absolutely. Power sagging. What are your thoughts? So definition. It's the most magical thing in the world.
It is,
it?
and it's even Christoph I think mentioned. Say, imagine a string, and you're kind of pushing up on the string. So wherever you're pushing up, it kind of changes that whole slope everywhere. So if you're increasing the definition, you're kind of just accentuating the higher range, and then it trails off. And same thing. I like definition around 5. Power sagging.
So let's show them what this sounds like.
Okay, yeah.
So you play a bit, and I'm going to bring it down.
And this is starting at what, 3?
Yeah, 3.6. So for me, I'm not going to fret much between 3 and 6.
Yeah, 3 and 7.
Definitely between 3 and 7. Between 4 and 6, I'm really not even.
No,
I mean,
that's sweet
4.5. You're right in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Higher, lower, and that's just amp dependent, right? This is a
and
tweed.
guitar dependent. If I'm on a telly, I don't mind 3s all day long because they
Sure. Yeah, because it's a bright guitar.
Yeah.
So a tweed amp like this, it's a small amp, but it's a tweed.
Right.
So there's low mids, a lot of low mids.
Right.
There's not going to be a ton of low bass, like a 412 kind of,
Right.
But there's a lot of thick, low mids, tweed stuff. So 3.6.
Right.
Yeah.
So you notice the low end just kind of go away?
Yeah, and the high jump up. It got a little telly-esque. You know what I mean?
Right.
Are you on the bridge there?
Yeah, bridge.
Yeah, check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see if you've got a humbucker that's really hot humbucker that's just too muddy, you can crank that definition up. It'll take that low end out and increase the highs.
Jump on the neck for a second.
Okay. Yeah, you can get really old school, like almost like the Supro kind of thing, where it just sounds like a blanket over the whole thing.
Yeah,
Just get
really
the
like a
definition all the way
muffled
down.
thing.
Yeah.
And that's where, to me, it depends on what you're playing and where things sound the best. Because if you're a Strat guy and you live on the neck and the neck middle position,
Right.
You're gonna go brighter, you know. Because like we talked about, how many people really use the bridge on a Strat? How many people really use just the middle by itself?
Well,
They do it,
sometimes I'll use the definition to tailor the low end to me, because that's where I noticed the most difference. You notice as we went up, it started getting a little shrill, but that low end just kind of goes away. So I almost use the definition as the low end kind of taper, and then I'll go to the treble and presence knobs, because you got kind of 2 there that you can work with to find the high frequency sweet spot that you want to add.
Right. Powerful.
Powerful.
How come they don't build those in on tube amps?
Well, that's the thing. I get so used to the Kemper. When I get on a real amp, I'm like, there's not enough controls. I don't have a definition or clarity or any of these things.
It's true. All right, power sag. So this one to me, it's a little confusing because it's
really subtle.
Yeah.
And I like a little bit of it. It seems like if you leave it all the way to 0, it sounds good. It's a good profile.
Yeah.
It seems like if you just turn it on a little bit, it starts feeling more amp-like.
Yeah,
Just
right.
the response. But I don't like too much of it, so I just kind of crack it open a little bit.
Right. I tell people it's like a tightness knob, but it works in reverse.
So you're dialing in loose.
Yeah. So you're just getting a little. Is
So-
that how I feel about it? Yeah.
So what's...
Try that. Here's 10.
Okay.
So it's looser at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I can't even keep it straight in my head. I'm trying to remember, right? But it's like a looseness knob, you know?
Yeah.
I tend to go. I don't know where you had this, so we won't
That's
save
probably
this.
fine.
Well, this is my Kemper, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you hear it start to compress at the higher levels.
Yeah. And I kind of, to me, it's like a less is more thing. I routinely put this around 2, 1.5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm even lower than that on some. And if it's a higher gain one where I don't want it squishing too much, because the Kemper kind of already, it has this volume leveling thing in it, which is one of the things I love about it.
Right.
But it can also compress things a little bit more than they would sound in the real world.
Yeah, I see people sometimes ask me how come the distorted ones are quieter than the clean ones.
Yeah,
And
I think
I'll
it's
say
because
just
they're leveling
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's building up a lot of Like the way we hear is very subjective. Like a lot of when high end starts disappearing, we feel like things get less loud.
Right.
Even though you might have a ton of mids,
Right.
especially the low mids, it doesn't feel as
Well,
it can.
We've spent years training our ears to be usually on an amp. If the volume's lower, it's cleaner, but it's also slightly quieter. As it gets more distortion, it gets louder. So we always associate being louder with distortion.
Yeah.
Since Kemper untied that little bit of thing, now we get more distortion without going up in volume. Our ears still want to hear that bump in volume.
More of it. Do you use the pick parameter much?
Never. Well, I don't want to say never. I've actually done it more recently.
It's just like a transient...
I don't use it for like... I mean, it's really good if you play metal or something like that because you get that really quick attack kind of stuff. But even on some things where I don't want to add a treble or whatever, sometimes a little bit of that pick attack will give you a bit of clarity on chords especially.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you what I kind of use the pick attack for sometimes. So I'm a big fan of like using my fingers sometimes and a pick other times. And I think I like that because I tend to use really hard picks. So like my buddy the Suze uses light picks and kind of goes for the Herco stuff or the light Dunlops, kind of a la the Edge, you know? But I really like that like hard pick attack and the sort of... I just love on a double stop, like a really hard pick attack, you know?
Our picks are very similar. They're about 1 millimeter.
Yeah.
Thick.
And I love it because you can get super aggressive, like... And then you can jump back with your fingers and... So for me, this pick attack thing is like the difference in the... It's sort of the difference in that pick sound, you know? And if I increase it a lot, I can make my fingers sound a little more... It's still like a loss of treble, but it gets closer to like here's my here's like the, you know, the with the pick attack high, you know. You can hear like the fleshiness of my fingers, but you're still getting more high end. Whereas if I put it back here, it's like it's just a little more rolled off. And of course you can come back here. If I bring it way down, even when I use the pick. So it's something I like using. I find it most useful on a Strat, but I'm usually leaving it 0.
Like if I turn it on now, I just barely push it up a little bit, just for a little bit of kind of clarity when you're picking chords or whatever.
I think for the higher gain guys, like it helps a lot to get out the sort of the
transient, basically.
Yeah. And it just feels defined and stuff. Compressor. This is one of my favorite parameters in the Kemper.
Absolutely.
Because I always say, imagine if in the real world, like in the analog world, we could have put a compressor here.
Oh yeah.
We would have them in all the amps.
And it sounds almost like a tube compressor. It's got this warmth to it.
Yeah.
But it's not just a squish. It doesn't sound like a Dynacomp in an amp section.
I know I've said this like a million times to people watching the Tone Junkie stuff, but it's to do this in the real world, to put a compressor between your amplifier and your cabinet. You would need a load box, take the line out, bring it to a compressor, compress the signal, take it out to an amp, re-amplify the signal, bring it to speakers.
Right.
And it's hugely valuable because you still maintain all of the picking dynamics as it pertains to how much breakup you get. You still get all the feel, over the gain, but you get an evening out of volume. And when we talk about like train wrecks or dumbles or anything that you can clean up with your guitar's volume, like that's one of the things we really enjoy. The evening out of the dynamics that tubes give you while still giving you touch sensitivity.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, where do you usually run this?
Usually around 1. But if I need it, if it's a ballad thing where I really want the chord to ring out longer and I've already got a compressor in the thing, but I just don't want it squished, I'll crank the amp compressor up and it just kind of fills it, and it does bring out the quieter bits, and it brings them up like it's supposed to. To me, all compressors, the best use of a compressor for me is to emulate an amp that's cooking. It's like in the old days when we played clubs, you couldn't be too loud, so you put a you put a compressor pedal under your clean sound, and it makes the amp sound like it's heating up the tubes all the way and working. So to me, all compressors just sound, if it makes the amp sound like it's doing its work and hitting its little mini wall, because those tubes, they saturate and they can't really go much further.
Right.
And so that's, to me, what that compressor does.
I feel like I'm usually 1.5. But I'm a fan of compression. I usually run a little compression up front. Like that's what we're doing right now too.
Yeah.
Not too much, but I love having it there. I find for Voxy stuff that I feel like is a little more, it just, it tops out quickly. It doesn't have as much, small tubes, and I tend to sometimes go a little higher, and I feel like it feels a little more cranked, kind of boxy. You know what I mean? Especially
for
the
different
old
guitars,
ones.
Filtertrons and Strat pickups, they love compressors just because they kind of bring out the body that might be missing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, page 2. Does anyone ever touch anything over here? Some of it.
But, I do Clarity quite a bit.
Yeah, but the next ones, does anyone touch?
Not tube shape or tube bias.
Clarity's great. Give me your thoughts on Clarity.
Clarity's cool, especially if I'm on a mid-gain kind of sound. That's where I really love it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really blend in clean sound, but it gives you that illusion of it's taking the note somehow. I don't know. They've kind of like Melodyne took, they disconnected pitch from everything else.
Yeah.
Clarity kind of disconnects clarity from the distorted sound.
Right.
So somehow they did that. So yeah, it's that's one of my favorites. If I'm on a mid-gain sound, I'll have it almost up to 5 sometimes. But a lot of my distortion sounds, like heavier sounds, I kind of keep it lower. And clean, it doesn't really have as much impact on clean.
Yeah.
But it's the mid-gain sounds where I like it.
I think it's and this might be in the manual, something like this, but it seems to like bring a cleaner characteristic to like single high notes, and that becomes more noticeable the more gain you get.
Even in chords too, like that's why I say mid-gain, because that's like my rhythm thing.
Yeah.
So when I'm playing chords, it'll kind of, you'll hear a little bit more note definition with it.
Yeah.
Or
but
just something, I don't know.
But it's not like the pick parameter. It's not just the hitting of the string.
No.
You can hear them sort of, you almost could call it like, string separation or string definition or something. String clarity.
Clarity's good.
Clarity, I guess, works. Full circle. Yeah. Tube shape and tube bias. These are like two parameters that to me are super subtle. And they, those are sort of the fixed settings. They don't adjust when you profile the amp.
And I've profiled bunches of amps, but all of mine seem to end up with a tube shape right around 9 or 10 o'clock. On the knob. Yeah,
they just it always gives you the 3.3 and the 0. And to me it gets a little into like Axe Effects territory.
Right.
You have a bias control over your tube screamer. Like I don't know what the
preamp hardness.
Yeah. Like what's the default? Where am I supposed to be? I don't know. What was the normal one?
Yeah.
Direct mix.
Seldom use.
To me, it's like it's.
I think I use it on one setting, on one song.
I feel like I'm biased against it because it has the word direct in it, and I feel like that should sound bad.
No, but
it doesn't.
All those Prince recordings, a lot of those were direct, and that's kind of what I use it for, is the funk thing when you want to play so clean. So I'm blending the direct out of guitar with whatever amp model I'm using, so that's why I use the direct sound.
Yeah, and it's not even like so powerful that like by turning it all the way up, like you haven't defeated the profile.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not like a 100% fader between the direct unfiltered sound and everything else. Volume.
Another thing is good for the acoustic.
Oh yeah.
So if you've got like an acoustic preamp, you can still blend in a little bit of the just direct piezo, and it kind of gives a little bit different sound.
Have you done any acoustic packs?
I've done a bunch of acoustic profiles. I've not released them as a pack yet.
I put some free stuff out that was just like profiles of one particular unit. But doesn't an acoustic just sound kind of good going to the board? I mean, does it just sound?
But I'm so spoiled. When we do acoustic shows, I love having my Kemper for compression, reverb.
Yeah, right. The effects, of course.
Yeah,
and just some shape. I guess that's true.
And I use the rotary speaker on.
Yeah.
We do Walk into Memphis. We've done it for years.
Right.
And I cover that B3 patch in the bridge, so I've always used that. And it's just, I love having acoustic instruments run through it. And if you've got multiple acoustic guitars, you can set different presets for different volume levels, because some pickups are louder, some pickups are quieter. I've got a Bouzouki that I use on our Christmas tour, so it's a lot weaker output, so I can adjust that. So it's it's very handy. Otherwise, I've seen like Nickel Creek where they got like 5 DIs,
Right.
for each different instrument.
Right.
So it's just nice to be able to program all that.
And it is fun, I guess, or it's easy being able to, just jump electric to acoustic and do it all. And you've got all the tools right there. If you're approaching the Kemper, what do you recommend for people in terms of where to start? We talked about the EQ a little bit. The EQ in the Kemper is just, to me, like really, really super useful. You've got this sort of... And almost no matter where you go here, like I'm going to try and make this bright, but it's not going to sound bad. It just takes on a more Fendery, Stratty characteristic, but is that harsh?
Not a bit.
Not to us at all.
And I love whatever frequencies they've chosen for this, because this isn't like the amp profile EQ. This is just its own Kemper EQ.
Yeah, it's its own thing going on.
Because it's not interactive the way an amp profile would be, or an amp EQ would be. But
we both love like cranking the mids too.
I like a lot of it.
Sounds good.
It does.
Yeah. So how about this? You play a little bit. I'm going to adjust this EQ because I am of the opinion that you really can't... It almost never sounds bad. It's not... And it's not that I would call it not powerful. It's just that it...
Doesn't screw it up.
It doesn't do things that would sound bad. It seems limited from doing that.
Right.
It's not a Mesa Boogie.
Right.
Right. Like very powerful. You can make it way, way bright and stuff.
Yeah.
But because of that, maybe those amps work well with a lot of speakers. We were talking about that earlier.
Right.
But one of the advantages of digital is like by turning one knob like that, you can make multiple things do different things.
Right.
Like it's like how we might set up an expression pedal to control multiple parameters. We can have them running, I only want this one to increase a little bit over a certain sweep, but I want this one to increase a lot, and I want this one to come up in the first quarter of the sweep but then max out. All that's possible with digital. I'm betting there's a lot of that going on here.
Yeah, and it's just, since it's not hardwired circuitry, it's maybe you're able to kind of disconnect those things, because in an amp circuit, once you start, because most amp circuits EQs are just high and low passes, and they're just stacked together.
Yeah.
These may be a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more variation. Sounds like different flavors.
Yeah, I mean, at worst, it sounds like you rolled your tone off.
Right.
I feel like with the mids up, is the really most usable kind of thing. Try that.
And the treble was great too when you. Yeah.
In some instances, that mid knob becomes like blackface or tweed.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that
makes it chewy.
Yeah.
Up, man, that sounded good when it was up. That sound reminds me of, you ever see Jack Pearson play?
Yes.
So he plays through a blues junior most of the time when I see him, and that's what it sounds like. It's just got that little boxy mids, but it's got a nice squish to it. And it's just really chewy.
Right. Is he usually playing on a Les Paul when you see him?
Usually it's Squire Strat.
Come on.
No, seriously.
That's not fair.
I know. Nothing he does is fair.
This has been fun.
Do you want to talk about the output?
Yeah. The output, the cabinet or the output? The actual output EQ?
Yeah, well, I get a lot of comments, especially first-time people, they don't know how to set it up.
Right.
So, and by set it up, I mean so when you go to the output, you've got all of these different parameters and pages. You can choose master, so when you're main out, you can make it stereo or mono,
right,
which is really handy.
Right, of course.
Your monitor out, now you can do that both. You can have stereo,
mono, stereo with the stage unit. You can,
and with each of those, you have a 4-band EQ. So your monitor out can have a totally separate EQ to the EQ that you're sending front of house.
Right.
I never EQ the front of house. I just leave it flat.
Right. And we'll get into this like more on a future one, but like you're playing this Mbritt signature powertrain stage 50.
Yes.
So you're actually running your Kemper with the cabinet emulation on.
Yes.
Back to a relatively flat sounding tube, power amp.
Yeah.
And then into a warehouse. What speaker do you?
Red, white, and blues.
Yep. Yep.
So it lets me. This just lets me leave my cab on. That's the thing I really love about this.
Right. You don't need to defeat
no
it.
horn. I don't have to EQ anything on it. It's just a volume knob.
Yeah.
And it seems to sound good with most of my profiles. Now the next page is where it starts getting really fun.
Monitor EQ. You can keep going.
Actually, this is the really fun page. So this master volume here on the top, it can control up to 4 different outputs. It can control main out, volume, headphones. So main monitor, also a send. I'm not using it for that now, but
you just have to link them at the top.
You can link them or unlink them. I tend to only link the master out, the monitor out.
Yeah. It almost could say output mixer, because what you're doing is you have 4 independent things.
Right.
And once you set them at the relative levels to each other you want them, you link them, and then you've got a master fader that brings everything up and down in that relationship.
Exactly. The beauty of only controlling the monitor is that if you end up plugging headphones in, the master volume's not cranked for some reason because the last time you used it, you had to crank it up on stage, and you put your ear monitors in, you blow your head off. So I leave the headphone volume just set to where I know is a comfortable level without killing me. That way I'm not accidentally just turning it up and down all the time.
Here's a question I get all the time. You guys travel with sound people.
Yeah.
So you probably, there's a certain level they expect to see. Do you ever run into, though, having to run your Kemper hotter or less hot?
Usually if I'm just recording in some different environment that I'm used to.
People ask me all the time, where should I be setting these levels? And the answer is it's relative to whatever you're going into and what the gain at the board is. There's not, you're not going to clip. I mean, it depends on the other thing.
Right.
So you can have it at minus 16 or you can have it at plus 10. It's supposed to sound the same.
Yeah. So typically I run at minus 16 or so. Now the stage for some reason has less output. So I run it at minus 12 or so.
Less output?
Less output. And I'm not sure why that is. I've had somebody else tell me. Bert Muehlendijk, I believe, and I were talking about it.
Does the stage have the output 12 dB off? Oh, no, it has it.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they omitted it or something. Who knows?
And if you look in the details of like the specs, this does have a different output dB range than the profiler heads.
Interesting.
Somebody just pointed that out.
It must be
online somewhere.
It must be different components in the
I don't know,
output section or something.
So typically with the heads, I'll run at minus 16ish, 16 to 18, and minus 12 or so on the stage, just because it needs a few extra dB to get to where. And that's only because I go back and forth. So on my big rig, it's one way when I use this with my same settings, so I don't make the front house guy have to change my gain and then go back and try to find it. I just change it on here.
Right. What else do you use in here? Anything?
Well, and you've got, you can disable the cab. A lot of the new users, they always want to just hit the cabinet button on top to turn the cabs off to monitors.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do it there. You want to do it in the output section.
You can permanently take it off here. That way you've got it's still enabled when you send it out of the mains.
Exactly.
And with it, maybe they're running it into a Hot Rod Deluxe or something where that's really, or if like a powered Kemper head.
Yeah.
Obviously you need to do it there. This unit's not powered, so probably less times you'll need to defeat that cab here if you're using a stage.
Correct.
Yep. Well, this has been fun.
This has been fun.
Hopefully, the people are more enlightened.
And hopefully we can do it again and enlighten them even more.
I think we should do it again in like 15 minutes.
You mean 2 months? No.
Yeah, that's what
2
I
weeks.
mean. No, a week or something. Who knows? So this is great, guys. Subscribe and like the video if you got something out of this, and if you want to see more that Kemper show. because I think we're going to do a couple more.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
I would
let's
love
do it. All right, in the future, we should talk about... I can always get people asking about making their own profiles. And I think one of the appeals of the unit is... It's not just an AC30. It's not a Marshall. It can be yours, the one you, whether that's a JMP or a DSL or a JVM or whatever, or a 90s Vox or whatever, and it's maybe with the speaker you put in and everything. It can be your amp.
Right. And it's not as hard as you think.
It's not very hard. The magic is in the Kemper.
Yeah.
We just press the buttons. You know?
No, there's just experience of having to move mics, and
there's a lot of that, but
it's not that hard.
And most people are going to be happy when they go play live. They're probably using one mic,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're walking in and there's a 57 or
Usually
a 906. Yeah, just thrown that. And so it's actually a pretty low. It's a high percentage shot that you will be able to, with a little bit of trial and error, get a better sound of your setup than you get from the guy at the bar who took 15 seconds to like set you up.
Oh yeah.
So
and a lot of times, if you can find an area to profile where you're actually cranking the amp a little bit, you'll be able to get a better sound, just because that same amp at a club, you're never going to be able to get it past 2.
Yeah.
So if you can profile it at 3.5, where it starts hitting that little sweet spot in the tubes, then your Kemper profile will probably sound better than the amp that you're using in the club.
I tell people, it's cheaper than having an entire like amp booth in your house, because I built an amp booth in my house. 4 moving blankets and a chair.
Oh yeah.
Because you just throw those moving blankets in the chair. Now you got a little space for a microphone. You throw that in there. You can crank that thing Saturday afternoon. By the time the cops show up, you'll be done.
My first profiles in my Pack 1, half of them were done in my living room. I had one of those big sofas, sectionals.
Yeah.
And so I moved the coffee table out of the way, put the speaker blasting at the sofa.
Right.
And then just put all the couch cushion, all the backs of the cushions around the speaker.
That makes sense. It sounds like sort of microfiber reflection.
Naugahyde.
Yeah, right. Well, I've been HW.
I'm Mbritt.
And thanks so much for watching.
Thanks.
HW and Mbritt out.